Let me get myself together real quick. I'm going to say shalom to all the brothers and sisters. I hope everyone is having a blessed and peaceful night. I know I am so far. It was a great day at the job, the plantation, and slavery. Say shalom to all. Yeah, it's working. Just making sure I got everything working. Yesterday, in last night's stream, I'm not going to be long, especially since I'm on OBS. The stream gets kind of choppy, especially when I have a lot of tabs open. But yesterday, I mentioned about us as a people and the way or the amount of children we produce that's a threat to people who lack melanin, meaning so-called Europeans. That's a threat. And I believe personally, and I'm not saying it's 100% factual, I believe purposely there is an attack on people with melanin on the earth. In other words, not just Israelites meaning so-called Negroes and Hispanics. Shalom, brother. Shalom. Welcome aboard. I believe that there's a plan on destroying people with melanin in their skin all over the planet. I believe that so-called Europeans, so-called white people, they're threatened by the existence of black people on this planet. That's what I believe. And I strongly believe in germ warfare. I'm not going to touch too hard on that because every time I kind of touch on this subject, I get strikes for some odd reason. You know the reason. But I don't believe the jibby jab and the viruses that we experienced in 2019 was just by chance. I believe there's a plan to eradicate our people off this planet, including Hispanics, who some think they're white. I think there's a plan to take us off this earth. And like I discussed yesterday, we have children at a phenomenal rate. And I brought up the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, and I was trying to go into it, but I didn't find the actual information that I wanted to put up. But here's something I found. And I'm not going to go too deep into this because, again, this can be kind of sensitive to the powers that be. They don't want this information out. You understand? Or it comes off as racist. But anyway, I'm going to make this quick. It says the Ku Klux Klan has historically used patronalist messaging, the promotion of childbearing as a central tenet of its white supremacist ideology. This rhetoric frames white women's primary social and political purpose. This rhetoric frames white women's primary and social political purpose as reproducing the white race to ensure its survival and dominance. Now, I'm not saying that all white people feel this way. I'm not saying that all white people are part of the Klan or have the ideology of the Klan. I'm simply saying that you have a section and a group of white people who realize that their very existence and survival depends on them mass-producing white children and maintaining control in this country in order to survive. You understand what I'm saying? The same way Trump took Venezuela, I believe he took it not just for power, but to survive. To survive. I believe he took it to survive. And I believe that in the minds of so-called white people, we are a threat. And it's not the first time. We're heading over, shalom, brother. We're heading over towards the time of Passover. And we know the story of Passover. Those of you who are experienced in the knowledge of the Most High, we know what was happening during the time of Passover. We were oppressed by the Egyptians, who were dark-skinned people. In this case, different from the white man, but it makes no difference because when you read Psalms 83, we have enemies. When you read the book of Luke, the first chapter and the 68th verse, we have enemies. And the fact that we have enemies is an indication that we should be on our guard, especially now. But I'm saying as a whole, as far as black people all over the earth, I personally believe that this is a threat to so-called white people, and it makes them feel very uncomfortable at the phenomenal rate that you so-called blacks and Hispanics have children, whereas they don't have children. They're chasing money. They're chasing power. And I just don't think it's in them biologically to have children at the rate that black people have children. I don't think it's just them chasing money. I used to promote that all the time. I don't think it's that. I think that the Most High just have us, or created us, sorry, as a fruitful people. So even in Egypt, when we served captivity in Egypt, you had the same situation. So too many people, too many children, a bigger nation in comparison to a nation that is in power and that is slowly losing power. The oppressed nation, that's a threat. Whether you believe it or not, that's a threat. And in scripture, in Exodus, the first chapter, it says, "Now these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob." And then it goes through all the tribes, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, so on and so forth. And I believe it was 70 that initially came into Egypt. I could be wrong. But nonetheless, as a nation, we grew. We kept growing. And they afflicted us and they put hell on us and we kept growing, and you have the same thing in America now. This is why you can't convince me that Hispanics are not Israelites. You can't convince me that Hispanics are not Israelites, because when you study germ warfare and all the trickery and evil that's perpetuated on black people, Hispanics are right there catching the brunt of systemic racism. Yes, they're catching the full brunt of systemic racism, even though they're in denial. A large portion of black people are in denial. But we can't get around the fact that America hates us. We can't turn our mindset against the reality and fact that America hates us. But what's running parallel with the hate from America is the decline and fall of America. The more they hate us, the more they try to destroy us. At the same time, God's judgment is bringing down America at the same time. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? They oppress us, but at the same time, they're losing money. They oppress us, and at the same time, the value of the dollar, which is America's strength, or white America's strength, that's going down. They oppress us, and all America's allies, not all, but a good portion of America's allies have turned against America. Look at Trump trying to get support from France, Germany, the UK, to deal with her enemies, Iran. And it, like I always said, is having a domino effect. Eventually, they will have to get involved. If they don't get involved, the Arab nations, they will get involved because they're losing money too. But my concern is about my people. My people. And there's always been a history of people trying to eradicate the true Jews. which are you so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and natives. So here you got all the different tribes, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. And it says, and all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob was 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already. So it went from 70 to a number that was so vast, so great, there was a threat to the rulership of Egypt. That's what it turned into. I'm going to go right to the meat of the matter because I don't want to be too long. It says, and Joseph died and all his brethren and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. And the land of Egypt was filled with who? With Israelites. So you had one dark-skinned nation dominating over another dark-skinned nation. And even though one dark-skinned nation had rule over the other, one kept growing and growing and growing to the point that the land was filled with them. And you have the same thing in America today. You keep growing, you Puerto Ricans and Dominicans and Mexicans, yet they want you out. You so-called Negroes, you keep growing and growing and growing, and that's a problem. You're broke as hell. You can't pay your bills. And even though you're broke and you can't pay your bills, your children are out of order, you still keep growing and multiplying. They tried crack. They tried AIDS. They tried COVID. They tried so many different things and methods to get you off this planet, and they cannot do it. And don't tell me that germ warfare doesn't exist, because germ warfare does exist. Drugs and viruses are created in laboratories for war or to get rid of people. And I personally believe that it's being used to get rid of people of color. I purposely believe, I stand on the fact that I believe it's a fact that a lot of drugs, a lot of medicines, a lot of bad foods, a lot of bad water, a lot of bad alcohol, a lot of bad weed is used to either make you sterile or to delete you in the future or not too far from the present. But I'm just pointing out that when we multiplied in Egypt, this was a problem. This was a problem. 8th verse says, now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. So Joseph had respect from the old school leadership, from the old school king, and this new king didn't recognize Joseph. Now, I don't know who this new king is because that's up for debate, because I'm hearing different understandings and different brothers who have been researching saying that this was Amos the first, that I'm hearing it wasn't him. So I'll fall back on exactly who this new king is. You understand? Because, this is what they're saying. Let me show this real quick. It says the mummy of Amos is thought to have been discovered as a part of Deir el-Barari cache in 1881. Although some have questioned identity, the mummy is on display at the Luxor Museum. They're trying to say that that's the king that ruled over Joseph, ruled after the death of Joseph. Exodus 1:8 says, now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. Who was that king? The quick answer is his name is Amos. If you're curious how we know that, keep reading. See, now, this is up for debate and question because I'm hearing brothers saying that this is not the king. So that requires some deep studying. And even with the deep studying, you have to formulate your opinion on, what you believe and where you're going from that point. The first 5 books of the Bibles refer many times to the kings of Egypt, but never by name, which is true. That's true. They either refer to him as king or as Pharaoh. In fact, no king of Egypt is named in the Hebrew Bible until Shishak, or Shushang, I think it's pronounced, who attacked Israel a few years after the death of Solomon. That's a good point. They never named who the Pharaoh is. But, we got brothers who are deep historians and very intelligent, and they do their homework. So that's up for debate. But the point is, I'm just going to stay to the meat of the matter, is that they always had the zeal and the wicked plans to destroy us as a people, meaning the other nations, and it never happened because who the Lord bless, no man curse. And like it says beautifully in the book of Peter's, the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous. You understand? Then you read Psalms 91 about the shadows of Egypt and the shadow of the Most High, the Holy Spirit. So you read that too. The Most High has always been with us and will always protect us. The Most High says, as long as the sun and the moon and the stars are in the heavens and they exist, the seed of Israel will continue to exist and grow and multiply. Doesn't say it like that, but I'm just quoting and I'm adding a bit from Isaiah 1 verse 10, that we are like the sand of the sea. But in the 8th verse it says, now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, everybody is not the same. So I'm not surprised that the Egyptians are looking out for his people. He belongs to a people, and we should be looking out for our people. But he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them. See, that wisely is not righteously. That's a wicked dealing that they were planning, in other words. That's the wisely they saying. We got to handle this situation wisely and do away with the children of Israel. So it says, come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. See that? I believe that America fears that one day we will get with the other nations to overthrow the white man in America. Somebody sent me a message, and one of the rulers of Iran said, we don't got no beef or war with you, black man or the black woman. And he said, we know that you're oppressed over there in America. Same thing during the Iraqi war. They said the same thing. They know what the hell is going on over here. They know. They know that the white man has had his foot in our behinds for years, for decades. And they know that he's the great Satan. They know this. 11 verse says, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the Israelites, But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. They were grieved. They were very saddened and upset because all these Israelite babies, all these 12 tribe babies kept growing and growing and growing. And the more they afflicted them, the more babies our forefathers had. Now let's fast forward to America. The more crack and drugs they put into the communities, you still keep growing. The more bad food and miseducation they put in the black communities, along with you Hispanics, you keep growing, growing, growing. Now, if that's the case, let's say what I said is 100% true. Let's say what I just said is 100% true. Do you think that white people in America, white people in the UK would be grieved with the growing amount of children and offspring that black people have? Whether you're in the UK, France, America, do you think that that would grieve them the same way the Egyptians were grieved? You think that they would sit down in their think tanks and say, listen, we have to do something about this. Otherwise, there'll be no more white race by 2035. They got reports saying if they don't do something, the white race will evaporate by 2035. Not completely, but there'll be a serious diminishing in the population of white people, politics as far as white people are concerned. Survival for white people is dependent on eradicating people of color, not just in America, but all around the world, and trying to offset God's judgment. That's what I personally believe. That's what I personally believe. They want to offset God's judgment. And one of the offsets is to stop the seed of Israel from spreading. So that goes back into the Klan. That goes back to the Klan because the Klan recognized this over 40 years ago, man. They recognized this over 40 years ago, and they were trying to encourage their women to have babies. Even a dog will do what it has to do to survive. You corner a dog or an animal, it's going to lash out in order to survive. It will do whatever it can to survive. It's not rocket science. It's not hard to figure out at all. Since keepers of history in 1920, the KKK recruited white women by framing them as moral guardians and keepers of history, whose duty was to have children to preserve Anglo-Saxon Protestant tradition. Check that out. This is all the way back in the 1920s. What condition or position were black people in 1920? The women of the KKK, WKKK, Women KKK, formed in 1923. The women of the Ku Klux Klan emphasized the labor of raising children as a form of political power to preserve America for Americans. What does that mean? America for Americans. You are stupid if you think that so-called Europeans, the children of Esau, so-called white people, the children of Esau, don't think in this capacity today. I'm not saying they all think this way. I'm not trying to be racist. I'm just adding 1 + 1 = 2. If you are in a position where you need to survive, you will do whatever it takes for you to survive and to preserve your people in a position of power. The Egyptians was trying to do it, but what happened? God stopped them. God stopped them. And so many nations have tried to destroy us as a people. And guess what? God stopped the Babylonians. God stopped the Greeks. God stopped the Romans. God did this. God stopped them. Cradle clubs and youth inductions. The organization institutionalized by creating cradle clubs for infants and youth divisions like the Ku Klux Klan to indoctrinate white children into supremacist beliefs from birth. So they instilled the survival of the white race from birth. Again, I'm not saying this pertains to all white people. I'm not saying that. But I do know that the majority of white people, in my opinion, fear major collapse in this system. They fear race wars and blacks attacking them when this system collapses and falls apart. They fear their daughters being manhandled, if you know what I mean, by black men, whether it's by force or even in a romantic way. They fear their daughters succumbing to melanated people. They fear this. But like I gave the examples earlier, they cannot stop it. It cannot stop it. Others, and so many have tried, and it can't stop God's judgment. It's very important that you open your eyes and realize where this country and where this world is going. This thing in Iran is very serious. This thing is at the tipping point where anything can just jump off. Anything can jump off. Shalom, 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 brother. Don't be stupid. I was watching this video earlier, and I want you to check this out. Let me see if I get this up. Yeah, it's up. Let me see.
I was told there's a CAB experiment, that's chemical and bacteriological warfare experiment, going on in Sierra Leone in Africa. That's a remote corner of Africa, West Africa, just above Liberia. If you look at your map, your atlas, and you'll see where it's located. Why Liberia? Extremely hard country to get to. You have to fly from London. That's the only way you can get there. You land on an island, and then you've got to take a ferry across to the mainland. And of course, all people taking the ferry are heavily scrutinized. And I managed to work my way. I was told the Americans were doing the CAB experiment. I managed to work my way to within striking distance of a small mission station. What I discovered was that these blacks were coming in from the bush to this mission station with broken arms or an ulcer on the leg or something like that. And they were ostensibly being treated there, but they were dead by the evening. What was actually going on was that the laboratory had been set up using Lassa fever virus. Now, at that time, Lassa fever was one of 4 viruses that could jump the human-animal barrier. And it was a deadly virus. They were trying to create a virus that could be mass-produced and that could be sent out through the World Health Organization to get rid of millions of people in the world.
Is this hard to believe? Because you got black folks and Hispanics who are stupid enough to believe that this is not possible, that no one can be this evil. You got people, not just black and Hispanics, you got white people, Chinese, East Indians. You got people on this planet that think that this Dr. Frankenstein, not the man on the screen, but the World Health Organization, WHO, the mad scientists in China or wherever, the UK, you're so naive and so stupid. You believe that it's not possible for someone to be this evil. Yet I just went into how when you want to survive, when you want to rule, when you want to control and dominate, you will stop at nothing to put in play certain methods, evil methods, to rule. And all you got to do is go on your laptops, go on your phones, and look up germ warfare and just how evil this man can be. All you got to do is look up black women who were forced to receive hysterectomies. We dealt with that the other week. That was for a reason. Black women and Hispanic women purposely given hysterectomies or made to become sterile. Why is this not happening with Chinese and East Indians on the same level as blacks and Hispanics? You claim that Hispanics are not Israelites, but why do they experiment on Hispanics at the level that they experiment on them, but not East Indians, Chinese, Japanese? Why is it? Why is it?
But the Lassa fever virus proved uncontrollable. It killed 3 scientists who were working there. So the orders came from Washington, burn the place to the ground, and that's exactly what they did within a radius of 100 miles. They bottled up some of these viruses they'd been experimenting with and took them back to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. There they began again, but again they escaped and killed 3 more scientists. So they...
You idiots, you say, trust the science. Remember that? Brother, you got to trust the science. Trust the science. Remember that? This is the science. This is the science right here that you idiots, you want to trust. Right here.
Millions of people in the world. But the Lassa fever virus proved uncontrollable. It killed 3 scientists who were working there. So the orders came from Washington, burn the place to the ground, and that's exactly what they did within a radius of 100 miles. They bottled up some of these viruses they'd been experimenting with and took them back to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. There they began again, but again they escaped and killed 3 more scientists. So they incinerated the whole laboratory, sealed it off and incinerated. The same experiments are now going on in Harvard University right now. But they're not using the Lassa fever virus. That has proved to be too tough for them to handle. Instead, the United States government gave millions of dollars to the United States military chemical and bacteriological warfare establishment at Fort Detrick. They began experimenting with the AIDS virus. I knew about the AIDS 3 years before the word ever came out in the world in the United States.
So what is this telling you? Because I stumbled on this video by accident. I was looking up Global 2000 and AIDS and how it was created in a laboratory. Some of you won't believe that AIDS and certain diseases are created in a laboratory to destroy you so-called Negroes. Why are STDs at such a high rate in Texas as we speak? Why are STDs and HIV now on the comeback? Or perhaps it never went away. Perhaps they just let you freak off. They let you fornicate, hoping that you would infect each other's and then die off, and at the same time examine, assess, do experiments on the low, and see just how effective they can be, or these diseases or drugs can be, to eradicate you and wipe you off the face of the earth. Luckily, the Most High exists, and he will not allow us to disappear from off the face of the earth. But this Dr. Frankenstein madman believes, check this out now, he believes he can offset God's prophecies. What happened with the Pharaoh? The more they afflicted you, the more you multiplied. They couldn't stop you. The Romans couldn't stop you. The Greeks couldn't stop you. No nation on this planet can stop you because you're God's chosen people. But at the same time, some of us will fall victim to this madman's trickery. Some of you, the women and the men who can't resist the urge to merge sexually, will die off. The ones of you who reject the word of God and reject the Bible, which is a form of spirituality, discipline, focus, righteousness, spiritual power, a lot of us will reject that and accept the modern day's Pharaoh's ideology and wickedness and die before Christ even comes back on this earth. It's very strange that he mentioned AIDS. And this looks like a very old video, but it's very strange he mentions AIDS.
Bacteriological warfare establishment at Fort Detrick. And they began experimenting with the AIDS virus. I knew about the AIDS 3 years before the word ever came out in the world, in the United States particularly, because of my field work in Sierra Leone. The British government used their Porton Down CAB facility. It's easier to get into the Bank of England box than to get into Porton Down. All the deadliest viruses in the world are being crafted there. In pursuance of the goal of Global 2000 to decimate the world. Shortly after this experiment,
Global 2000. So what I did, I looked up this Lassa fever germ. I looked that up. And it says Lassa fever is a severe viral hemorrhagic illness epidemic to West Africa, identified in 1969. Due to its high mortality rate in hospitalized cases, 15%, and potential for aerosol transmission, I think that's air transmission, it is recognized as a significant biosecurity concern. It is recognized as a significant biosecurity concern. This is in 1969. Experts consider it a potential Category A biological weapon. Experts consider it a potential Category A biological weapon. Identified in 1969 after 2 missionary nurses died in Lassa, Nigeria. Notice how they said they burnt the facilities down to the ground, not because of the transmission of the virus, but to hide the evidence. But they were experimenting on these biological weapons with Africans. With Africans. Now, you're a fool if you think that this is not happening in America. You are a fool if you think they don't put stuff in the food, in the weed, in the drugs. You are a damn fool if you believe that that's not happening here. They've been doing this thing for decades in this country. For decades. And I guarantee you, they top tier witches, they know you're the children of God. They know you're the children of God, but they can't get rid of you. And they will continue to try to get you off this earth. Trying to survive. What would you do if you were the devil? Wouldn't you try to survive? KKK. Telling their women to have children, to preserve the right race, and to keep them strong politically. Trying to survive. Women of the Ku Klux Klan emphasize the labor in raising children as a form of political power to preserve America and Americans. Trying to survive. 2,000 years ago, the Egyptians Come on, let us deal with them. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. But it didn't stop there. It says, therefore they set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. They were grieved because of the children of Israel. Same thing with the Klan. Same thing with white America. They are grieved with you. So I went further. And I looked up the origin of SWAT. A lot of you think that's it's just a regular organization to fight crime or protect certain states from terrorism, whatever you think. But it was originally created after the Watts riots, where black people got out of control and they needed some form of protection to protect white people and property and keep black people in check. 1965 Watts riots and the need for urban counterinsurgency strategies. Origin and key factors. Birthplace, LAPD developed the first team originally conceived by John Nelson and supported by Inspector Daryl Gates, who is often called the father of SWAT. He was a crazy racist white man. I mean, you check out old footage in California when black people were heavily oppressed and really going through hell, and the white man was doing whatever he could to keep him down, keep him in the ghettos, keep him from the white woman, keep them down. Catalyst, the 1965 riots showcased the need for tactical response to urban unrest. The need for tactical response to urban unrest. Who is that designed for, or who is that pointed towards? Black people who are a problem in the ghettos and were burning down stores because of brutality, who were destroying property because of police brutality and oppression and racism. It says, while high-profile sniper incidents such as a 1966 Texas Tower shooting highlighted the inadequacy of standard police weapons like the .38 revolver against armed suspects. Initial setup. The first team consisted of 15 four-man teams comprised of volunteer officers, many of whom were military veterans who utilized Army surplus equipment, including a convert red delivery truck. Purpose I was bringing this up is because it was designed against you so-called Negroes. The team's first major public attention came in 1969 during a confrontation with Black Panthers, and later in 1974 during the Sumbinese Liberation Army shootout. You got a YouTube video. I want to check it out. Let's check out the YouTube video. Can I open it? Yeah.
And everything. I'm like, yeah, who the hell is this?
Let's check it out.
The response to protests in Ferguson, Missouri, raised questions about the growing militarization of the nation's police.
This is not the Middle East. The police in these dark pictures are throwing tear gas at neighbors.
Nothing illustrates that trend more vividly than the rise of SWAT teams, and they have a long and complicated history.
Back in the old days, SWAT was used to only handle the most serious situations.
Dynamite?
tear gas, automatic rifles, and hand grenades. All were used today. The bloodiest and most massive gun battle in the history of Los Angeles.
Now it's being used to handle all kinds of situations. Our society tends to want to solve problems through a very aggressive, vigorous approach, and oftentimes that's couched in terms of waging war, the war on drugs, the war on poverty. And it's not just a benign metaphor.
Isn't that something?
At dawn this morning, the police went to the Black Panther headquarters with warrants for the arrest of 2 Panthers. The intermittent warfare between the Black Panthers and police erupted today in Los Angeles. There, a group of them barricaded themselves in their headquarters and fought police with automatic weapons and hand grenades.
Go downstairs to the second floor. We heard all this noise, a helicopter. We jumped up. We grabbed the guns. There were police officers with rifles across the street on rooftops, police officers in the back. They put a charge on the door blew open, and the police came running in. There was heavy gunfire, and they shot 3 police officers.
That's what they fear. They fear you so-called Negroes really waking the hell up.
We saw this little cloud come around the corner. When that tear gas hit you, that tear gas, it wasn't no joke. We were like rats in a hole being shot at for 4 or 5 hours.
Freeman and 5 others surrendered to a police force like they'd never seen before.
When I came out and I looked up, saw them in their black uniforms and everything, I'm like, yeah, who the hell is this? Black boots, black pants, black shirts. They did not look like police at all.
That's because they were a new kind of cop, members of a special division of the Los Angeles Police Department who made their debut at the shootout.
It was very similar to a military operation in the tactics and techniques we had to employ.
5-man SWAT teams, marksmen trained in special operations, were created to deal with extraordinary events, such as snipers, hostage situations, and other violent confrontations. The late Daryl Gates, former chief of the LAPD, came up with the name. His first thought was to call them Special Weapons Attack Teams.
Someone wiser than I was said, no, you can't say attack. And when I thought about it, I thought, you're right. So it became Special Weapons and Tactics.
The idea for SWAT teams was formed a few years earlier, after the police were caught off guard by the Watts riots and had to call in more than 14,000 National Guardsmen. Ron McCarthy was there.
The riots in 1965 were a game changer. A good portion of South Los Angeles was burning to the ground.
Against snipers, looters, and arsonists.
You know what they fear? They fear this coming into white neighborhoods. Usually Negroes and Hispanics, they burn down their own stuff. But they fear this coming into white suburbs and white women and being attacked. That's what they fear.
Operating in the dark, police and National Guardsmen had tried mostly to confine the disorder to the 42 square miles of this area.
Police had no real strategy for how to respond, and were criticized for using excessive force. After 6 days, 31 civilians, 2 cops, and a fireman were dead.
It was a formative experience for the LAPD because they realized that they needed well-trained, well-organized people that could handle that level of conflict.
It wasn't until several years later that the LAPD SWAT team would cement its reputation on the national stage.
Everything happened in a frantic 2 hours just before sundown.
SWAT teams led the way as hundreds of cops and FBI agents moved in on a home where members of the Symbionese Liberation Army, a radical fringe group known for kidnapping heiress Patty Hearst, were hiding out.
Police were receiving heavy weapons fire, which they returned.
5 suspected members of the Symbionese Liberation Army are dead.
Miraculously, there were no civilian casualties.
Ron McCarthy was leading a SWAT team during the incident.
I took a lot of pride in the fact that we did a good job and no citizens were injured. a lot of requests came into the LAPD SWAT team to go to other parts of the country and train SWAT teams. And
Other parts of the country, meaning they want to protect and preserve America. You think these white folks are not upset when they see all these migrants flooding the country? But the white man has no choice, because he has to bring in as many migrants as he can. I'm talking about the left, for votes. This is why what's on the frying pan in the news media other than Iraq? Showing ID when you vote, because they were cheating all this time. They were cheating. The left was cheating, and they need to rig the elections to the point where people don't show ID and they vote. This is, I can remember a few years ago, but political. Paul Ryan was telling people to have more. He was telling more. I kind of remember that. I kind of remember him telling people to have more babies, but I think he phrased it in such a way that he wasn't telling white people to have babies, but then they were saying he was telling white women to have more babies. I'm telling you, they fear you, so-called Negroes and Hispanics. They fear you, man. They fear you. And this is a problem. There's a major problem. So in the 60s, they had to do something to set up some guardrails so you so-called Negroes wouldn't get too cocky and destroy the country. They had to do something. And today, they're so weak and so pathetic that they can't stop what the Most High is pushing. This is God's day, man. This is God. It's always been God's day, but these are the times, man. Pay close attention to what's happening around you, because they can't stop the judgment of the Most High. They can't. They'll try, but they can't stop the judgment of the Most High. Shalom, please. That's me. That's a good point. You brothers, hit that like button, man. Do me a favor. And sisters, if your sisters are watching, hit that like button. But you gotta wake up and see what the hell is really happening, man. Bottom line, because people are afraid, people are confused. The ones who are not afraid, they're just confused. And they're just walking around, not they're walking around, they trust in this devil. They trust he's gonna save the day, and that's just not the case. But the longer you so-called Negroes continue to keep having babies, you so-called Hispanics continue to keep having babies, that's going to be a problem. So they got to get rid of they got to make you black men sterile or take you out. They got to make you black women and Hispanic women sterile, or they got to take you out. These things they have to do, because they're fighting to survive, not just here in America, but abroad too. America is hated. That's why we read yesterday that they put a warning out that black people should be very careful when traveling. They should be very careful, because America and the powers that be are hated. They're hated. And if you're not careful, you can be put yourself in a really bad position. Here it says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, ye are the sons of the living God. You are the sons of the living God. So you brothers and sisters who are teaching and pushing the word of the Most High, I commend you. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't let no one stop you from what you're doing, because it's effective. It's effective because you got to look at it from the perspective that people don't have hope. There's nothing to hope for today. Your jobs are not guaranteed. Keeping food on the table, that's not guaranteed. And peace in this country and abroad, that's not guaranteed either. But what is guaranteed is the word of God. And there will be pain and suffering, but you have to be under the feathers or the shadow of the Most High. Not Pharaoh, but the Most High. But that's all I got for you, brothers and sisters, today. I want to say Thawada, meaning thank you for joining me this evening. Please hit that like button or subscribe or hit the dislike button. Feel free to put comments today, tomorrow in the chat. I'm going to see how this stream went through. Again, I'm on OBS. I'm experimenting. I got the lapel microphone on my hat. You understand? So, it sounds pretty good to me, but the stream gets kind of choppy because of all the tabs that's open. I got to work on that. But nonetheless, you brothers and sisters, watch the news. We're going to see what happens with Trump. I'm hearing they're at the negotiating tables. I was hearing that earlier. Now I'm hearing Iran saying that's a lie. They were never at the negotiating table. So we're going to see how that plays out. But they got, I think he said 48 hours before they start bombing the grids, the power grids, and the power they need to survive. Then we got the situation at the airport, or the airports. That's a nightmare. Could you imagine flying and you have to wait hours and hours? So you got a lot of things going on, man. You got a lot of damn things going on. And all we got to do is just dance around. Don't go in for the kill. Just dance around and let the Most High's prophecy fulfill itself. You ever watch boxing and one of the boxers know he's winning and he just keeps running and dancing and laughing to the finish line? You got to look at it like that sometimes, man. Meaning don't get caught up into no foolishness. So you got a lot of stuff going on, and that's all we got to do. Just be wise in the Most High and do what's necessary to survive, because it's about knowledge and wisdom shall be the stability of thy times, bottom line. And you got to look at it from that perspective. You got to function off the knowledge and wisdom of the Most High, because that's what it's about. You can't trust in man. You can't trust in Trump. You can't trust in politicians. You can't trust in anything that's outside of the Most High, bottom line. Trump, most unpopular cabinet member, reveals we exposed him who is bottom of White House ranking. So you can't even trust the media because they hate Trump. So Trump will say something. It might be true, might be a lie, but the left will put out something to counter it. Or they'll put out the worst things they can find to slam him. So while these devils are divided, you don't know what to believe. You have to fact check and do things for yourself. Get your facts for yourself. One thing I seen was that Bibi Netanyahu is not dead. You got brothers on Facebook. I don't know how brothers are so goddamn stupid. I don't know how brothers can be so goddamn stupid. They are saying that Bibi Netanyahu is dead, and he's not dead. He's not dead. So with that, I don't know. I'm not gonna say much, man. I'm just saying, man, brothers got to get it together, man. Just fact check, man. Come on, man. But anyway, you brothers and sisters, you stay strong. The water for stopping by. Passover is April 1st, so I know a lot of you are getting ready for that. Some is doing it on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I don't know. As long as you do it, that's all right with me. But get your minds ready as you approach that day, because you're not supposed to eat the meal with any malice or hatred in your hearts. All we have is each other. All we have is the Most High and prophecy. Chill out, fall back. Sometimes you don't always have to say anything. Just don't say anything at all. Even if you're right, don't say anything at all. Watch your tempers, watch your spirits.